Fantasy football has become the NFL's parallel universe. Each season, almost 30 million fans, hardcore and bordering on obsessive, spend countless hours drafting and recalibrating their fantasy team lineups. They watch twice as much TV sports as the average fan and 3 times more ESPN. Young eyeballs that advertisers drool over. Once dismissed by the NFL, fantasy has grown into a multi-billion-dollar sports bonanza. It began as a subculture of self-proclaimed geeks and nerds. Only 10 years ago, fantasy football would have made die-hard fans and athletes roll their eyes, but not today, thanks in part to fantasy's biggest cheerleader.
If you say it's dorky, yeah, it's a little dorky, but so what?
It's cool now?
Absolutely, it's cool now.
Is it cool now?
I definitely think it's cool now, Sharon. Listen, Jay-Z plays fantasy sports. You know, he's in a hardcore 12-team fantasy football league. Like, whatever you think of Jay-Z, he's not a nerd. There are leagues filled with Playboy playmates. Grandmas play, kids play, you know, priests, rabbis, and ministers. Sounds like the start of a joke. It's actually 3 different leagues I know about. Everyone plays fantasy football, like they do every year.
And in the world of fantasy sports, everyone wants a piece of Matthew Berry. He is ESPN's senior fantasy sports analyst and helped elevate its popularity to the level of real sports.
You want me to talk you out of drafting Adrian Peterson #1? Well, listen, who wants to win every year? That's boring.
On radio and TV.
I select Ravens running back Ray Rice.
Or at drafts and book signings.
Thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. Christian Michael is actually who you want.
Berry's fantasy picks and player evaluations
It's like the best offensive line in football.
are considered gospel to the fantasy faithful.
Before we go to bed, I always read her a little snip from your book.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Puts her right to sleep?
Oh, yeah, she loves it.
Right.
His book, Fantasy Life, released over the summer, was a New York Times bestseller.
Do you feel a little bit like the nerd who got invited to like the cool table?
Oh, totally. Oh, totally.
What's going on in fantasy land?
They're doing a profile on me and fantasy football.
How far are you taking this crap?
A self-described geek, Berry finds it unimaginable that he now shares airtime with actual football greats and that celebrities sidle up to him for help with their fantasy teams.
In what universe should I ever be hanging out with Jay-Z? In what universe? No universe, Sharon. But I got to do that because of fantasy sports.
The road to Matthew Berry's fantasy life began in the heart of football country, Texas.
Were you a big football player?
I was not a big football player. I was a Jewish kid growing up in Texas. They don't let Jewish kids play Texas football.
Good job. All right, George Foster.
So in 1985, while others tore up the gridiron, Berry, just 14, joined a fantasy baseball league. That's him in the glasses holding court.
Matthew, for who?
Bill Doran.
Bill Doran, what is he?
Second base, Houston Astros.
Berry would go on to become a Hollywood screenwriter. Unhappy, he found joy in a side job, working for free as a fantasy sports writer.
And I was thrilled. I was doing backflips. Like, that let me know that I think we're on the right path here.
A path that led him to start his own fantasy website called The Talented Mr. Roto.
Time once again for one of the more popular segments on the show, Flex Appeal.
It became so popular that in 2007, ESPN bought it and made Berry the network's Mr. Fantasy.
The 10 names that came in the most are here on the screen. It used to be we were the minority. Now I feel like the minority is the people that don't play.
Fantasy's growth made Matthew Berry a star.
Once again, welcome inside the show.
Today, he's its most recognized personality.
So the games haven't even started today. How many people have reached out to you?
I just checked my Twitter about 20 minutes ago. 646 in the last 20 minutes.
646 people in 20 minutes.
Yeah. So over the course of a Sunday morning, it's about 5,000 people.
Fantasy expert Matthew Berry.
During draft season, Berry is in high demand.
Alfred Morris.
Trading barbs with the staff of The Howard Stern Show.
How much for you to take that
You've
pick back?
given me such bad advice over the years.
Oh, stop it.
You have a busy day today?
Yeah.
Making countless TV appearances.
I'm doing Collins show. My wide receiver up, T.Y. Hilton. When's the first
And on game days, everyone looks to Berry for tips and inside information.
And they're saying what to you?
Who do you like on Sunday? This guy or this guy?
Is this a fad? Is this rollerblading or Pac-Man? Or in 10 years, is it going to be even bigger?
By the way, cut to the people who rollerblade going, what do you mean? Is it no longer hip? What happened? Every study we see, I don't see a way that fantasy doesn't continue to grow. People love to root. whether it is for our running back to score more points than your running back, we are a country that likes to root.
Come on, baby.
And that's what fantasy sports does.